Remember I was telling you that we will have 2 unicorns? This is one unicorn at the stage. Laurent, welcome. By the way, do you know anything about Bolt? Besides seeing Bolt and knowing that Bolt is supporting Startup Moldova, did you know that Bolt was launched by a teenager when he was only 19 years old? And then I was reading that he took only $5,000 from his parents to launch a startup. And from day one, they decided that this startup is not going to be local. It's going to scale abroad as much as possible. And Bolt was launched from a country which is even smaller than Moldova. So again, I'm telling you this just to show that everything is possible, and Bolt is a great example for that. But Bolt was successful because of several reasons, and one of them, they were focusing on scaling globally. And today with Laurent, we will discuss about how to scale globally based on Bolt playbook. So I know that only last year, you've managed to scale in more than 150 cities, from Europe across to emerging countries across all the continents. Across 4 continents, actually. I was calculating, it's like, what, 1 city in 3 days? I mean, you definitely have a playbook on that. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the 150 cities is obviously in a lot of existing markets. So once you obviously have a basis, you operate in a country, you have a legal entity, a local team in place, then I think certainly it becomes a lot easier to expand outside of the capital cities and expand the service further. I think it obviously takes a lot more effort and thought to open a new country, understand the regulatory framework, build great local teams. But yeah, if you're already operating in 50+ countries as we are, then scaling across the cities we operate in is a lot simpler.
It's a lot simpler, you say. But what would be the first signals when you enter the market to understand if this market is going to scale for you?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of vanity metrics that I try to ignore. I think they're usually really good for PR, like how many users signed up, what are the total orders per day or per month. I think what I really like to focus on is on 2 sides. So we obviously have our rider side, customers which book a ride, and drivers obviously who facilitate these rides. On the rider side, we look at first 4-week repeat orders, especially if once the discount's out. So do they use us again, especially without incentives? On the other side, like on a longer horizon, let's say 4 to 8 weeks, we're looking really at organic growth, sort of word of mouth, non-paid referrals. Like, are we offering a decent enough value proposition to customers so they would recommend us organically? And on the driver side, obviously, you have the same. I love the metric ETA, so it's like how long does a driver, take time to pick you up? Obviously, if you're scaling the rider sides and you're not scaling the ETAs downwards, you're scaling an incredibly big problem, and that never works out well. So on the driver side, I want to see, obviously, more drivers joining, ETAs going down. And I think when those 2 work in combination, then you really have sort of the definition of network effects, and then you scale incredibly quickly.
That's super interesting. For founders out there in the room, launching in a new market often looks easier when it actually is. And we look at Bolt that launches in many cities, like, okay, they know how to do it, but I'm sure you have your own challenges for that. What would be the challenges here that you usually meet while scaling?
I think the first one, in the industry where we operate, sort of mobility as a general, I think regulation and legal frameworks is always an issue. Our modern legal frameworks in place that allow us to operate, that are fair towards customers, towards platforms, do they make sense? And it's obviously very difficult to scale when it doesn't, and it usually doesn't, allow us to deploy capital if the legal framework is not there. Second of all, is I think sort of hiring. Hiring is always, I would assume we're a global brand by now, but whenever I launch a new market from Malaysia to Taiwan, New Zealand, it's you don't get a lot of organic, or at least the talent we really want to look. You don't get them organically, and I think there's not a good way to solve it by a lot of patience and a lot of interviews.
But I believe from city to city they are very different, from small cities to big cities. But what would be the challenges that you've met in Chisinau? Are there any specifics and differences?
No, I think obviously you have to localize. So every city, like how do we acquire customers? How do we acquire drivers? If I think about Malaysia, we really have to go on the ground, recruit drivers physically. If we go into more modern places, similar in Africa generally, I think there's a lot of countries where we just have to do that. Here, particularly, I think it's a mix. It's also very much fleet-based, so we have a lot more, let's say, B2B acquisition cost, acquisition effort, and also the customer base. I think we can't just go with every playbook and say, look, this is how we're going to present ourselves. We have to localize and finding the right ways. It's you never get the right thing, but I think early on you need to pivot quickly, understand what's working, what's not. So I really try to facilitate making mistakes and learning quickly and till we get to the right point.
Keeping it in Chisinau, I'd like to ask you if you see if something stands out to you in terms of how people move around cities like Chisinau compared to other markets where Bolt is.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing about here is that we obviously operate our scooter business for 4 years and launched our ride-hailing business last year. So that's usually a dynamic which we're not used to. So usually we have the ride-hailing business, we have a great customer base already there, and now it's the opposite way. So I think it's me mostly working with the ride-hailing domain within the company. I thought it was great to have users already on board. Second of all, I really looked at the dynamics of it, and I thought it was interesting that at the core, comparing to the core European capital cities, there's a lot more movement happening during midday, so rush hours, but also in between the day versus nighttime. So maybe that speaks to the entrepreneurial spirits that people prioritize REM sleep over going out to bars at nighttime.
I see. Micromobility in urban areas sparks a lot of debate because it integrates, sometimes disrupts the existing local transportation, sometimes adds a new thing that people are not ready for. In your opinion, what and how micromobility can improve people's life in Chisinau, in cities like Chisinau?
Yeah, I think micromobility is really a complement to the ecosystem, to the public transport ecosystem, to the mobility system in general. If we look at data on ours, it's 30% of all micromobility trips actually end close to a public transport station. So it's really first mile and last mile solution for customers to go grab a bus or go to the metro. We also see that 70% of the trips are actually happening in rush hours, so in the morning rush hour and the evening hours. So people are obviously using this service to complement their journeys. And obviously, I came here this morning, I was stuck in traffic. So I think overall, if we have some of this car traffic going into sort of micromobility, low electric vehicles, I think overall it's a good thing. And we really think it's a viable solution that helps cities with congestions and help overall city mobility.
You mentioned today in our discussion that things that you look first and that can be different is operations, legislation, regulations, and so on. When you enter the new market, what tends to break first in your opinion and in your experience already? Is it operations, regulations, or a product? And how do you approach this?
I hope nothing breaks, but I think regulation, I think, is the base layer. I think that's sort of the concrete of how we operate, where we operate. So I think that needs to sort of function at a working status for us to allow to operate and scale. But I think on the operations side, I think we operate in an incredibly dynamic marketplace. people move, holidays move, everything changes on the daily. So in reality, it constantly breaks, right? And I think the people who are working in operations, maybe in this room, that's where they strive in, and that's why they love the job, right? It's like, okay, well, this used to work yesterday, it's not working today. Like, what kind of changes do we have to drive? So it's really part of the job for us, and I think that's really what makes the job incredibly interesting. On the product side, I think we obviously have a great product, but you can't stay with it. Tech moves fast. Obviously advancements in AI generally. We can't just stick with the same product. We have to evolve with it. So hopefully they don't break, but hopefully we can introduce features that make sense. We can leverage AI in ways that benefit the users, benefit our drivers, etc.
If we share some secrets, and if you want to share some secrets with me, I'd ask you the following question. What one bet Bolt is making today about the future of urban mobility that might not be obvious for the others?
I just saw the previous one. You were very deep into tech and the fantastic stuff you guys are building there. So I don't know if it's going to be a big surprise, but I think certainly AV, autonomous vehicles, is something that is, it's not science fiction anymore. Cars are operating across the world already. I mean, especially in US. We want to be part of that. We have, obviously announced partnerships with NVIDIA, Pony AI, and Stellantis just this year. So we do have the full stack now to start building AV, and I think it's incredibly important that a European company plays there as well in this domain, and that the European players as well taking this sort of next step and introducing AV technology to the broader ecosystem we have. And we're really bullish. We're going to announce 2 pilots this year, and our ambition is to have 100,000 AVs in Europe by 2035.
Moldova is there, I believe, in the list of this.
I need to speak to Marcus, but hopefully.
We're talking at the beginning that Bolt started quite in a small country, a country which is smaller than Moldova. And for founders out there who feel that they are somewhere at the edge and they're from small country, might not have enough courage to start a business like Bolt in the future, what mindset or decision made the biggest difference, like was pivotal in getting Bolt to scale?
Yeah, I think Moldova and Estonia have a lot of similarities, a lot of shared history. So I think where we started and Marcus started, there was, the funding in the space was ridiculous from some of our competitors. We had maybe 0.1% of their funding, and so we couldn't copy their playbook. It wasn't just possible, but what we had to do is define our own playbook, and that was very much capital efficiency. It's building a very frugal, a very efficient business, and giving that value to both our riders and to our drivers. And so I'd really think that as you call it, building from the edge. It's not a handicap. It's a filter, and it's an empowerment, and it reaps a lot of benefits as well. If you compare, let's say, even engineering labor cost from probably here to Silicon Valley, right? You have massive advantages, and I'm sure you'll find ways to leverage them, and sure enough, you have the next Bolt in Moldova as well.
I'm sure of that, and it definitely makes us very resilient to all the challenges around us. My last or one before last question would be the following. Well, all this that you shared with us was very interesting and very insightful, and I'm sure that founders and entrepreneurs also find this insightful and inspirational for their journeys in their businesses. What do you think, or not what do you think, but before that, what would you like to share with founders as your advice for future entrepreneurs who can scale a business like Bolt for Moldovans?
Well, I think I heard it before, like on the previous presentations. I think deeply care about value propositions. What you want to offer, and I think that's where we're really mindseted on at Bolt. Like, what's the value proposition we are giving to customers? What's the value proposition we are giving to drivers? And if you really take that as sort of the core fundamentals and think, start thinking everything else from there, I think you cannot do a lot of harm.
And the last one. So, share with us what Bolt is bringing next to Moldova.
Yes, I'm quite excited about this. I spoke to a couple of folks last night, and we'll hope so. I think in May we'll launch Bolt Business as well. So that brings, obviously our tech for entrepreneurs, but also for bigger companies, efficient systems, sort of billable your work trips, and able to just sort of get less one hassle less on your mobility needs, so you can continue building. And I think fundamentally that platform is incredibly useful to a lot of companies globally, and I hope we can be useful as well as a mobility partner to many companies here in Moldova. So do sign up. We're happy to have you.
Super. We'll do that. Thank you very much, Laurent. That was it. Let's give a round of applause to Laurent.
Thank you very much.